going on, everyone? Welcome to the Code X podcast, episode 160. This is the pre-show. I am back. Daddy's home. I'm so happy. It's amazing to actually sit here and say that the thing I started on back on. With me, Dan Kelly, for the first one back. How you doing, buddy?
Yeah, well, I mean, it's good to have you back. You know, it was so long ago that you said you were just going out to get some milk and a pack of cigarettes, and you never came back, and here you are. You're back.
Well, I went through the pack. No one's questioning that.
Well, you know, that's the best way to keep from an unwanted pregnancy.
Yes. Fortunately for some, I guess. But, ladies and gentlemen, again, welcome to the Codex Podcast. We are going to be going over, I'm doing a Sonny thing because Sonny's out breaking action figures in Disney World. We're going over the rundown comic news for the week. Spider-Man 94 coming out. Batman 2 script finished. We've got Jim Shooter, unfortunately, passing away. And is Marvel actually collapsing? So we'll be getting in that. And as always, we got Variant Sanity, thanks to Sal and his, variant collection that he's got. How do you have so many variants, but not enough single issue runs? We're going to be doing right or wrong. I am taking over this week for that. I can't wait. I want to see what Dan has to say about most of these.
Did you remember to get chips?
Yes, I did not. The F list, which Dan is supporting, random panel of the week again, which he is too. And we're going to be reviewing the Last Avengers Stories 2-issue series Dan picked. I'm just letting everyone know now before I destroy this. But, buddy, tell them where they can find you when you're not here doing Codex things.
But, buddy, to quote Archer, phrasing.
Sorry. I mean, if you want to be a butt buddy, you can. You can take it in any form you want. Ha 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 ha.
You can find me on Instagram at Dan Kelly Art. Been posting a lot of sketch covers I've been doing recently. I actually just finished a Wonder Man one today because I was trying to think of what to do for a Avengers blank sketch cover I've had sitting around here for freaking years, and I just decided, Wonder Man original costume. I sent a picture of it to Gary. He liked it. So,
well, if Gary gives you the thumbs up, you're all good.
I mean, that's the seal of approval. That's his favorite Marvel character. So, but yeah, you'll be seeing a bunch of sketch covers posted coming up because I'm trying to clear out as many as I can.
And it's the best way to go about it.
Yeah, this guy. I mean, he's back. I don't know what.
There's nothing else to say. Hi.
He's back. He's back on the podcast that he birthed from his mind onto the internet.
Hi, internet. But yeah, no, it's surreal to sit here and say I think I left that before we even hit triple digits, and now we're here. Wow. Yes. Now we're back. So I'm excited. I'm ready to do this. We got some good, like I said, comic news. I want to talk to you about these right or wrongs now because I'm excited. All these segments, but you guys can find us over at the CodeXStation.com. It's your one-stop shop for everything Codex. Get some merch with the team. Let us know what you like and don't like, and find us on all of the socials. Yeah, at the Codex Station, and that's where you will find it. We are absolutely dripping with the socials. We would love nothing more than to give them to you.
And venereal disease.
I leave that part out. It's a guessing game at that point. Back from outer space.
Guess who's back? Back again.
What's going on, Booge? How you doing, buddy?
So, yeah, a lot of interesting stuff going on.
Oh, there's so much. It was weird. I actually got to hit my comic shop again for the consecutive week on a Wednesday, and I was just like, this is beautiful. Like,
oh yeah, I went after work today. I'm sorry, Sal. I forgot to ask him if they're open on Friday, so you'll have to call and ask.
Sal's got a call. Oh, can I place my order for meatball subs this time? Oh no, wrong place. Okay, yeah. Are you guys open?
That reminds me. Back in the day when I was working at Domino's, it was some random weekday, and I was working. I was there in the afternoon. It was two of us there. It was me and the driver. The driver was out on delivery because middle of the day on like a Wednesday, Thursday. There's not a need for a bunch of people.
Right.
This woman comes in, and is like, "Hey, I'm here to pick up my order." I'm like, "All right, cool. What's the name?" Like, Linda. I'm like, "All right, Linda," and I'm looking on the heat rack. I'm like, I don't see any order for her. And I'm looking, I'm like, I do have something in the oven. I'm looking there, like, no, I don't have anything for there. I don't have any labels. I'm like, all right, let me pull up the recent orders. I'm like, nothing for Linda. I'm like, all right. It's like, I don't have anything for you. What? Can you tell me what it was you ordered? She's like, oh, I got, because Domino's got the sandwiches. She's like, oh, I got, two of the subs. I'm like, all right. I'm looking. I'm like, I don't see an order in for that. I said, are you sure you called us and that you didn't call another Domino's? Because there was another Domino's like a 10-15 minute drive away, another one that's a 10-minute drive from that.
Right.
Are you sure you called this one? She's like, yes, I called here. I'm like, all right, well, I don't have the order. I don't know what happened. If you want to put it, I can make it for you now. She's like, no, I called here. This is the Subway that I called. And I looked at her and I'm like, this is Domino's. And you see the woman go like this. I turn, look at the window behind it and go, and then just turn around and walk out, not say anything. I'm like, Subway's green and yellow, Domino's is red and blue. There's signs up all over the place. Domino's, Domino's, Domino's. The big one on the front door when you came in.
It wasn't a clue.
Wearing the hat that I'm wearing, all the pizza boxes, a pizza, like just the layout of the store. Like, how are you so oblivious?
There's just some people, man.
I was taking a tour of Meatball Alcatraz.
I can't escape the marinara.
I guess it's better. I just said the other day, the human marinara.
Yeah.
I guess it's better than the gator Alcatraz they're making.
Yeah. Well, that's his kink. And we don't judge kinks here.
No, we don't, man.
Oh, God.
We at the Codex station are kink friendly.
100%. Oh, so you want to get into this? Get the show kicked off?
Yeah, let's do it. Let me find which one of these is the right one to play. Well, because they're not in any. It's like It's like the stuff for like the little intro videos and stuff for like the podcast, and then there's another podcast like, oh, and here's one for Uncle Gary's Showcase, and then here's a podcast one. I'm like,
yeah. Unfortunately, there's no way around it.
Yeah. All right. Well, here we go. I was like half a second too late on clicking that.
What's going on, coders? Welcome to the Code X podcast, episode 160. Sonny is out on location breaking action figures all around Universal at the moment.
Coders.
Thank you all for joining us as of now. I am Jamie, JW, your host. With me is the immaculate Dan Kelly and his art. We're about to go run through a whole bunch for you. It's been a minute, so excuse me if I missed something by accident, but we got a lot for you. Got comic news of the week, variant sanity, right or wrong, random panel of the week, the F list, and what are we reviewing today, Dan?
The Last Avengers Story.
Yes, we definitely are.
How do you like in the on the intro that Sal put my name way bigger than yours?
Yeah, I was just in the corner. I was like, you never put baby in the corner, Sal. I know you're watching. That's messed up, bro.
What was it? Was it the episode of I think it was Family Guy that did the little parody scene of Dirty Dancing, and he's like, nobody puts baby in the corner, and then the guy goes, I do. I put her in the corner because I'm her father, and she's only 14. You sick bastard.
Oh, Family Guy always has a way to my heart. Unfortunately, I haven't watched it in like 4 years, so I don't know if it's any good or not. What's going on, Richard? Hey, buddy.
What's up, Rich?
But why don't you say we get into some comic book news? I want to find out your takes on some stuff here, bud.
All right, let's get into it. That really reminds me of if you ever watch the videos for the Weekly World News.
Yes, 100%. But this week in news, we have Spider-Man #4 comic series bleeding off the animated series. We have the Batman 2 script officially finished. We've got Marvel Comics potentially collapsing, and we did lose. Oh, and then we got this guy just to stop by, throw it around. It's okay. Monkeys do the same thing. But we did unfortunately lose a legend in the industry.
Yeah.
Jim Shooter did pass away, and I think we should start with that, if you don't mind. Dan, what's your thoughts, bud?
I mean, there are not a ton of controversial characters in the comic industry. I mean, not as many as, say, music or movies or anything, but there are some, and Shooter is, one of the most controversial. He started writing at 13 years old when he's submitting Legion of Superhero stories to DC. In fact, they didn't even know how old he was for a year or two until they invited him to New York for a meeting because they wanted to, hash out some things for what they were going to do. And he said he had to ask his mom permission. And then his mom had, because he was from Pennsylvania, and his mom had to drive him there. And they were like, what? Because they thought it was like an 18, 19-year-old, fresh out of college. And, how many people get started at 13 years old in any industry and then rise to the top of it the way that he did? He's a fantastic writer. They say he, would read Marvel comics and look at the way they were written and then look at DC and be like, well, they don't have the same, they don't have the same kind of thing going on with DC as far as like the character depth and all that. So he brought that to them. He goes to Marvel. He eventually gets to be editor-in-chief of Marvel, and he rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but Marvel put out quality books. His edict to them was make good comics. I know this is, contrary to how the operating has been, but like him or hate him, the guy put out quality stuff. You look at the stuff that Marvel did under his tenure. Walt Simonson's Thor, Cap was good, Avengers was pretty good. Claremont was hitting his stride in X-Men. They did Secret Wars. I mean, more stuff than, hey, Mr. Keith, more stuff than I can, even think of to name. Just a ton of quality stuff. Eventually they get sick of Marvel. They fire him. What does he do? He goes, starts Valiant. And, I loved Valiant when it started.
Valiant boom.
He goes, starts Defiant. Ends. He goes and starts Broadway. I mean, this was a guy that was not going to take no for an answer. And, he was vilified for a long time in the industry. And then now you see all of these creators singing his praises when he's gone. And to be fair, they're not creators that I saw criticizing him when he was alive.
Right.
But, I haven't really seen fans, complain about him. Fans have always seemed to have good interactions with him, enjoyed his work. So I think it's a big loss for the industry that, he was kind of a taskmaster, when it came to working for him, and he demanded excellence. But I mean, isn't that what a boss should do? excellence from the people under him.
Yes, he did, Booge. Yes, he did.
I just did that interview with Christopher Priest, and he talked highly of him too.
Yeah, anytime you need Mr. Keith, I got you. Don't worry. But yeah, it's a shock to the industry. We've lost so many good creators in the past year. It's been hard. I mean, we're doing a review based off one that we did lose.
Yeah,
just recently.
Yeah, Peter David.
And I don't think there's ever going to be a point where his legacy is not going to stand the test of time. There's always someone that's going to go back and be like, well, Shooter did this way. And that should be that guiding map for everybody in the creative industry on that front. Yeah. Because that man took some of the best bits of him and put it into what we have grown into comics today.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty simple mantra if you want to have it. Make good comics.
Yeah, and
that should be the goal, not, and let's face it, when he took over as editor-in-chief, there was cronyism that was going on at Marvel. It was, it wasn't necessarily, are you the best writer or the best artist for this book? It was, oh, well, people like you, you're friends with this guy, you're friends with that guy, and he wasn't putting up with any of that. He was like, we're going to make good books. And I don't know how, I only know what I've read about how, he treated people, but, they say, oh, well, he drove away a lot of good creators to DC. Yeah, but there were a lot of good creators that stayed at Marvel. Like I said, Simonson's Thor run is probably the best run ever on a character that's been around for a long ass time. Hunt thrived with doing X-Men, he made everything. He demanded that everybody do their jobs and everybody do them well. And, I read that, he would, when people would submit stuff, that he would send it back to him 3, 4, 5, 6 times before they got it right.
Mm-hmm.
But, they got it right. And they all walked away afterwards saying, you know what, my work was better because of it.
Yeah. And I saw something from Simonson on Facebook today saying there's internet trolls going after him now that it's all, said and done. And he put out this beautiful, beautiful post about him. And it's said that there's some people out there that are still wanting to hate on somebody in the industry that made the foundation for what we have today. Yeah. And, you could talk about anybody you want, but at the same time, what would your collecting experience be right now if it weren't for him? What would our movies look like? What would the whole medium look like without his direction?
Yeah. I mean, how many guys got their start in the industry because of him? J.G. Jones he put out a really nice post about how he hired him and, he brought, this scrawny kid and he brought him in and, he's like, he must have seen something there. And he told him when he brought him in, he said, okay, you can draw, but we're here to tell stories. Mm-hmm. And I think people forget that just because you can draw doesn't necessarily mean that you could tell a story. A lot of people can draw a really nice pinup, a really cool looking cover, but can they tell a story with their art? And there's a lot of people, ones that are good artists that just can't do that. And he would take the time to sit down and make sure that, that everything that you're telling a good story.
Yeah. And a lot of it today is more, let's see what we can throw at the wall and see if it sticks, where then it was more, hey, how does this work with what we're doing now? How do we make this move forward instead of backwards? Are we making sure that we're putting our best foot forward rather than just seeing what sticks? Because Marvel's always been the type to have 100+ books out which don't last, whether it's canceled or whether it's made for trade or whatever the case may be. Back then it was more, hey, I need these issues because this run isn't going to a trade anytime soon. These are specific altering the industry issues, and it wasn't a lot. They didn't throw out that much at you. It was, this was happening in Spider-Man. Now we're going to bring this into let's just say Thor and every other comic, and the continuity was there. Where now the continuity is more like, well, this is happening here, but also here, you could do this. And it gets confusing at times, where back then when he was, editing, he was getting everyone on the same page. Now it's just different chapters.
Yeah, and I posted in our group chat the other day, but Rob Liefeld put up a post, a really nice post that really praised Jim Shooter, and Rob Liefeld doesn't have anything nice to say about anybody.
Never.
Rob Liefeld trashes everybody, and even people that are supposed to be his friends and in the industry. And he had a nice post to put up with it. I remember thinking, like, man, that just shows his impact when even someone that is a contrarian like him has something nice to say.
Yeah, but we did lose a juggernaut in the industry. No pun intended, and it's going to be felt throughout all of comics. And I want to bring the note up a little bit lighter here. Let's jump into some DC news. I mean, Batman 2 script's finally done. It's already on the table. Many are looking forward to it. Many are not. What are your takes on this, Dan?
I like the Robert Pattinson Batman movie. The only gripe I had about it was that it was too long, and that it was too long in the sense that when you thought the movie ended, oh no, here's like another 15, 20 minutes for it. Like I thought it got to a point where it would have been a good ending, and then it's just stretched out a little bit more. But other than that, I thought it was a cool movie. I dug it. I thought the casting for the most part was pretty good. One or two here or there, but I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed that it got into the detective aspect of the character, which really they haven't done a lot with that in the movies. They've done some, they did some, in the first Keaton movie, but it was really just him like, plugging a bunch of stuff into his bat computer. Like this was the first one where you're like really got in and was doing detective work. And, and I thought it was, Richard says Rob Liefeld even trashes.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, yeah, I really dug it. So I've been, anxious to see what the second one is. I know a lot of people are talking about like, oh, they should just make this the Batman of the James Gunn's DC universe. No, keep it separate. Yes. Let it be its own thing. Let it, the world that Matt Reeves created with that movie seems to be, just from seeing the trailers of Superman, seems to be starkly different than what they're going to do in that universe.
And that's the problem with me, is everyone has been so keen on the idea of, well, when's this Batman 2 script coming out? When we, there's been delays, there's been this, is it still happening? Is it going to work? And to me, yes, you have the Elseworld side of James Gunn's DCU, which is fine. I don't care. But to put that much,
the average fan doesn't know about that. They're just like, oh, it's Batman.
Yeah, and that's the end of the day, that is a fact. But to people that are so into it and hardcore into it, it's like, I look at it from the perspective of, well, it's cool, but now we have a new leadership. Now we have these new parts we're playing with. If you're going to sit there and say, I care about Batman 2 script being done, is the same people that's like, well, I cared about Blue Beetle, even though it was announced way after the fact that was the first technical DCU film in this new franchise. And if that's the fact, then I feel like Pattinson should be the Batman in, Batman Brave and the Bold that they're starting off with, where he's got Robin.
Yeah.
And that's not going to be the case. So yes, it'd be cool to see, which is rumored to be Mr. Freeze, be a part of the Batman 2, Rogues Gallery. But it doesn't, I don't have that hype anymore like when the first one came out, because there was so much controversy to me behind it, because you got, if everyone remembers, you have the Twilight boy playing Batman, and he did good. He did really well in my eyes. But Yeah.
No,
But,
the Snyderverse is gone. The Snyderverse is dead.
yes, officially. But it comes down to the point of like, okay, you're gonna see Batman 2, and then they're gonna announce who the Batman for the DCU projects are. And it's like, can those coincide with one another? Is it gonna be a comparable
I know,
beat?
Richard.
Yeah, we all know.
Richard's just waiting for Dexstar.
Yes. Is it gonna be a comparison issue where it's like, well, the Batman with Pattinson was better than your Batman. Why didn't you just bring him over? Or, oh well, this Batman is better. Scrap all the Elseworld stuff. To me,
There's always going to be that, though. They're going to compare it to, I mean, they still compare every new Superman to Christopher Reeves, and rightly so. Christopher Reeves is the epitome of Superman, I think. But I think from what he said, it seems like the Batman in the DC universe proper is going to be vastly different than the Reeves one, because the Reeves one is, as much as you can have Batman be a grounded character, it is a fairly grounded movie. And I know in the DC universe one, I like how they're jumping into it, and it's like, oh, it's not like we're starting off fresh and nobody knows stuff. Like, people already, there's already superheroes in the world. People already know, I mean, yeah, I'll be Batman.
Dan is Batman. Batman.
But yeah, I mean, I like the idea that he said that Batman is going to be older than Superman, and he's going to be old enough that he has a young teenage son that's going to be his sidekick.
Mm-hmm.
And presumably, since he said it's going to be Damian, that means there have been a few other Robins before him, so he's had to be around for a while. I think it's going to be much more of the superhero Batman as opposed to like the gritty one, and I'm fine with that, man. They give us like 18 new Batman books every week. They can give us a new Batman movie, once every 2 years. I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, it's like there's no real care for it anymore. There's no hype for me. There's, it's gonna be fun. Am I gonna watch it? Of course I am, but but it's not my mindset at this point. I want to see if the DCU makes it. I want to see if everything that they're connecting together bring back. Yes, please.
I do like Gunn's approach though, where he said even though he did the announcement, he's like, "Here's what we're going to do in this phase 1." Was it Gods and Monsters? I like the fact that he is said and seems to be sticking with, we're not going to announce any project until a script is done and he's happy with it. Not just because anybody could go and knock out a script in like 2 or 3 weeks and be like, here you go, and then read it and be like, well, this is crap. Yeah, but it's done. Let's go. They're like, no. When the script is done and it's good, we're going to announce it. Because Clayface wasn't even on the radar. That wasn't anything that was announced. And he apparently had just talked to this director, and the director said, a while ago, it's like, I got this idea. And he goes, well, go ahead and write it up. And Gunn even said it wasn't even on the radar, and he turns in the script, and the script is so good. He's like, all right, well, yeah, we're going to
start
do it.
casting.
Yeah. So, I like that as opposed to the MCU, which is, it's not just that they're announcing movies. They're announcing them and putting release dates for them 2 or 3 years in advance, and they have nothing for them other than a title. And look at the problems that's caused with Armor Wars, Blade.
Even though Blade got put back on, I seen that and I was like, you guys just said that was canceled, and now we're jumping back onto it. It makes no sense.
Yeah, I mean, they've had all these problems with, these, and movies have to get pushed back and then dropped. And yeah, you could tell us look, these are the movies we're developing now, but we're not going to announce it until we're actually ready to do something. I'm good with that.
Yeah, no, 100%. I'm behind it as much as everybody else, because it makes no sense to just be like, well, this is our timeline, and if we don't make it, oh well, we'll just push it back. But something that started off a long time ago is getting pushed forward, and that is Spider-Man 94 continuing the animated series. Now, I feel like you're excited about this one, Dan.
I'd be more excited if it was an actual cartoon instead of a comic.
Mm-hmm.
But Yeah, I mean, I grew up watching Spider-Man cartoons, not just that one. I grew up watching, Spider-Man and Spider-Man is Amazing Friends, and then
Mhm.
Spider-Man the animated series, and so I'm psyched. It was one of those things in X-Men '97 where we got the little Spider-Man cameo, and they came out and said, "Oh yeah, that's canon." That because Spider-Man, the X-Men, and the Fantastic Four cartoon all existed in the same world. And
Right.
the producers were like, "Oh yeah, that was the Spider-Man from Spider-Man '94." Like, yes. So yeah, I'm psyched to see. I'm psyched to see a continuation of stuff that I liked when I was younger that stays true to what that was. I mean, X-Men '97 was phenomenal.
Yeah. Well, here's the point that I want to make on this is that yes, X-Men 97 was phenomenal. It was. And the problem to me is now is this the cash grab? Is this just what we're doing just to see if it's going to work and what happens if it doesn't? But in comic form, you know, they had X-Men 97 comics coming out that were the same as the show. Why not just do the show instead of the comic? In my eyes, if it works so well and the formula was there, why are we reverting this to the comic form if there's no structure for the actual show to continue from where it left off?
I mean, everything's a cash grab.
Mm.
At the end of the day, like it's all a cash grab because they want your money, and they're pricing the stuff so much. But yeah, they got a good creative team on it, so it's not like they're just they could easily know with something like this. Okay, well, people are going to buy this, so we could just have anybody do it, and it doesn't matter how good it is because they're going to buy it because of what it is. So, the fact that they have, I'm not really familiar with the artist Jim Toe,
No.
but the writer J.M. DeMatteis, I mean, that guy is a legendary comic writer. And
Yes.
he's written a lot of Spider-Man. I mean, he wrote Kraven's Last Hunt. He wrote for the cartoon. So, he wrote that fantastic, spectacular Spider-Man run with Harry as the Green Goblin. So I'm all for it. That guy could tell a good Spider-Man story.
Yeah, and like I said, the creative team, I do appreciate that they're putting their best foot forward on. It's the idea of you already had brought back.
Well, that's his animated spider powers.
Yes. Is you already brought back X-Men 97. You brought nostalgia back. You brought this hope and feel that people were missing. Why couldn't you do the same with Spider-Man? And Spider-Man's your market. Like he's the most marketable character you can use. And instead of going that route, you went comic route, which is cool because of the fact that people are going to buy it. Yeah, there's no doubt in anybody's mind that people are going to buy it to see what happens to continue the story. But why can't you market it the same way you did 97?
Yeah. But not the X-Men 97 too. They could have done that and said, "All right, just do something, do whatever. People are going to watch it." But they're like, "No, we're going to do something quality. We're going to do something really good." And that's one that'll be interesting to see how the second season turns out with all the behind the scenes drama that's gone on with it. But
Yeah.
we'll see how it goes.
Well, we'll lead into some more Marvel news. Dan, is Marvel Comics collapsing?
They're not doing great, man. Daredevil is being canceled again, and it's Daredevil. He's a marquee character for him, so he's not going to stay canceled for long. But they get these sales bumps whenever they do a new issue one. Like, all right, you get a little sales bump, but then that goes away pretty quick after the first issue or two. And I think really, what's negating that sales bump is they're looking as like, oh, it's the start of a new season. It's a good jumping on point. Well, you know what else it is? It's a good jumping off point too. And people that are like diehard fans of the character, they're going to stick with them. But fans that have been reading one series and liking it, maybe liking it, not loving it, and you're ending it and restarting again, they might just go, hey, you know what? I've got the complete run of Volume 7. the price of comics now with $4 or $5, $6 an issue. Just, you know what? I'm not going to start with a new one again. So, I get it, but they're ending that. They're ending West Coast Avengers, which is disappointing to me. They're ending, I think Psylocke is ending. Magic, I think, is ending, which is weird because apparently it sells really well, but the group editor for X-Men now, Tom Brevoort, doesn't like the character. Like, so you're going to, once again, it's creator, people at Marvel that are taking something the fans clearly like and support and changing it because of their own personal feelings. Like, you already ruined Spider-Man for us. I don't really, Magic's book ending, I haven't read it, so it doesn't affect me one way or another. But, in an industry where good sales seem to be tough to get, if you've got a book selling well, regardless of your feelings on the character, if the fans like it and are buying it, I don't know why you would cancel it.
Yeah, it's more to the creator side jumping ship. A lot of people are going indie. A lot of people are going into the DC realm. You're seeing this shift from Marvel over to the other part of the big three, technically, your independents, your DC. And I think people are looking at that being like, well, Jason Aaron's left, for example, and he's doing great things at DC. He's doing great things on the independent circuit. You've got other creators that do great things on independent that were supposed to be just selected for Marvel, where they couldn't branch out. And now you see them actually either ending contract or going somewhere else. Never right.
Steve McNiven's been with Marvel for like 20 years. He drew, Spider-Man. He drew Civil War, all this big stuff. He's going to DC now to draw Batman.
Yeah.
That's pretty big. When you're losing one of your marquee guys like that, Brian Michael Bendis left, and granted his Superman run sucked, but still he was their top guy, and he left, went to the rival.
Yeah, and
competition.
I just feel like I don't see it so much as collapsing. I see it like I kind of mentioned earlier, where they're just throwing stuff at the wall to see what sticks. And if it doesn't stick, move on, because that's been their marquee for so long. If it isn't something that's going to generate cash flow for them, they're not interested anymore. And that's the saddest part, is because you look at DC side and their continuity is so intertwined and so held knit together right now between Absolute and their main continuity. It's insane. It's so fun to read again, where you have so many stories that can sit there and justify each other, rather than, well, this is happening over here, but we also have this over here, and you're not going to understand it because none of it connects. Where Marvel, that's what they're doing. It's like, okay, cool, you got a spin-off of Spider-Boy, or you got a spin-off of Ghost Spider, which was Spider-Gwen, which got renamed 3 different times.
Yeah.
It doesn't hold value to me to go into the comic shop and be like, well, I want this character, I love this character, and it has nothing to do with the MC or like the 616.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the only thing that's holding on by a thread is the Ultimate line, and it, to me, it's just it's sad.
Yeah, both companies are guilty of it. Like, we're going to do this event and we're going to have all these spin-offs and, and all this stuff for it. And both of them are guilty of it. Like, oh, we're going to cancel a book and we're going to restart it with number 1. But it does seem like Marvel is a little more guilty of that than DC is. Books like Captain America, Daredevil, Avengers, these are not books that should be on volume 7, volume 8, volume 9. Like, Amazing Spider-Man, what volume is that on now? Like, that should not be
11.
Yeah, something like that. Like, that should not be, should not be canceled and restarted that many times. You don't have to cancel a book and restart it when you get a new creative team. Mm-hmm. I find that ridiculous. And for the whole, it's a good jumping on point with a new issue 1 on this. What happened to the way they used to do it, which was just they'd have the big blurbs on the cover, like, new creative team, new direction, great starting
Good
off.
point.
Yeah, She-Hulk's another one too. Start and stop. But where they would just put that on there, and it would be real big on the cover. So like, oh, new direction or new what? Okay, I'll pick that up now. And She-Hulk was the stupidest one because they had She-Hulk, and then they canceled it and restarted it as Sensational She-Hulk with the same writer, the same artist, the same direction. Like, that's just that was so dumb. Like, I didn't get that. I didn't get that one at all.
Yeah.
And they're not giving these books time. I know it's good that they said, all right, well, we'll give every book 10 issues. We're not going to cancel them after 5 issues. We'll give them 10. Except for Weapon X-Men, they only gave that 5. But now you got all these books, Psylocke, Magic, West Coast Avengers, that are hitting issue 10, and they're like, all right, we haven't found enough of an audience yet. Get rid of it.
Yeah, and it is sad in that aspect. It's just, as collectors, as people that love it, it's hard to sit there and justify, well, you only gave me 10 issues of something I love, and you took it away, because what? Other people didn't like it? When in reality, too, it's, no, Marvel just looked at it and went, it's not selling enough. Let's just, boot it to the side, hope for a new number 1 in the next year.
Well, the problem, too, is, you get fans, and I'm guilty of it, too. I'll look at some of the books, and I'll go, why am I going to buy? I'm like, I might be interested in this, but, why am I going to bother? They're just going to cancel it. It's not going to last. What do I care? Like, all these new X-Men books they introduced, was it Storm and Jean Grey and Psylocke and Magic and
all from the ashes just to be put back.
And I remember saying, Dazzler. I was like, yeah. I said the only solo X-Men characters that have sustained their own solo books long term is Wolverine, Cable, and Deadpool. That's it. Nightcrawlers had a couple runs that went 12 or so issues. Dazzler in the 80s, but Dazzler was, Dazzler wasn't really part of the X-Men at that point. They're like, we introduced her in X-Men, and then she gets her own book. Like, she wasn't really tied in with them that much. But really, outside of Wolverine, Cable, and Deadpool, name me a X-Men character that's had a long, sustained run. I guess Gambit kind of has. He's had books that have lasted like 24 or 30 issues or so, give or take. But it doesn't happen for him. And one reason I think too is like, they're not willing to give it the time that it needs.
No, they're not letting it marinate in the story. They're just being like, well, it didn't work. Oh God. But with every comic, there's a lot of issues. And I say this because of the fact that we're going to jump into variant sanity.
Well, do you want to, as I mentioned to you in the do you want to mention the big character reveal from Ironheart?
Go ahead.
For anybody that hasn't watched Ironheart or hasn't seen the news, earmuffs. 3, 2. I'll do the Sonny countdown. 3, 2, 1. They finally introduced Mephisto, played by Sacha Baron Cohen. I mean, it's been 4 years that they've been talking about it since. Yeah, that's the problem too. Is Richard's already making his guess.
Yes.
Yeah, the fans have been talking about Mephisto for 4 years now since WandaVision. So they finally get him. They finally get the guy they said was playing him now. Granted, they finished filming Ironheart, like a year and a half ago, and it's just sat on the shelf. But I've watched most of it. I was telling Jamie before the show, I think it's okay. It's not this terrible piece of garbage that some people on the internet would have you believe. It's also not this amazing piece of MCU work that others would have you believe. It's, it's out of a scale of 10, it's like a 5 or a 6. It's just there. But the little bit of Sacha Baron Cohen as Mephisto was pretty cool, and I would be interested to see him show back up again. That's a pretty major character, so I hope it's not a one and done like we've seen with so many other character teases in the MCU that never turned into anything. Blade, Black Knight, Hercules, etc., etc.
Yeah. I don't really have a say. I got to watch it.
I only started watching it this morning I was walking around work having it on my phone while I'm walking the halls and stuff because the thing got spoiled for me. I'm like, well, let me try and watch it all so I can catch up on it before tonight. I didn't finish. I'm partway through episode 5, but
Yeah.
I did watch that little snippet of episode 6.
Yeah, I see. That's another thing that just falls flat for me. It's been rumor, it's been conspiracy, it's been 4 or 5 years building to this moment, and it's like, well, now I just don't care. Like, cool, he's in it, and we know who it's going to be because that's who they've been rumoring it to be since the very beginning.
I mean, he's, I can't think of that many other actors that could do as good a job with the role as Sacha Baron Cohen. There's a few I could think of that would do really well, but if I had to pick someone to play him, he'd be like right in the top 3, top 4.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's enough for the news. Let's get into some variant sanity there, Dan.
All right.
I feel like I'm at a rave. So, variant sanity. This is where we talk about what comic had the most variants for this week. Anybody that's in the comments right now or in the chat, let us know what you think before I spoil it. And I'm going to do the Sonny countdown because that's what Sonny does when he does this. So I'm going to give it to 3.
Well, wait a minute, because, he always has us, whoever's on here with him.
Oh, yeah.
Unfortunately,
I already know.
Unfortunately, I already know too, because when I was uploading the F list panels and when I was uploading the random panel of the week, Sal had already put it up there, so I did see what the book is. I don't know how many variants there are, but
in that case, then, how many do you think this week? And then give your guess, and then I'll give you what title it was.
All right. Well, does anybody? All right. Well, Richard had said
TMNT, and Mr. Keith says TMNT.
31.
Price is wrong, Bobby.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 32, just to get it, Richard. I will tell you guys, there is no Ninja Turtles book that came out this week.
No.
Right.
So, what do you think the number is, Dan?
Well, let's do the book first. You want to
give the book then?
The Sonny countdown.
All right. So the book this week for Variant Sanity is none other than Captain America #1.
Yeah, Cap is back. As you can see, they released his new book just in time for 4th of July. I got my Cap shirt on. I got my Cap books behind me here. I'm excited for this one.
Well, how excited are you, and how many do you think everyone else is excited for when it comes to the variants?
All right. Well, Booze says 25. Richard, Mr. Keith, do you want to stick with your answers? Like I said, I don't know how many issues. I just saw that was it. So, knowing that it's Marvel and that Marvel and DC rarely go super crazy with the variants, I'm going to say 12. I'm just going to go with a dozen.
Okay. I mean, hey, it's not a bad guess. This week it was 14.
14. All right. So,
and I picked up one of them.
One over. As always, Price of Right, or Wheel of Fortune rules apply. Or no, Price is Right rules apply.
Yeah.
Closest without going over.
Yeah. I feel like it's like
years.
I feel like it's to me a relatively low number for a Cap book, for a new #1 Cap book. I thought there would have been like at least in the 20s. But
well, again, Marvel and DC, like I said, they never really go crazy with the variants. They did with the first issue of Hush 2 with Batman.
oh god, yeah.
They're doing. I know for Batman 1, they're doing they're
The blind bag.
doing a bunch, but they have like all the regular variant covers, but then they're doing the blind bags with the foil versions of them, where you don't know which one you're going to get. So it's a way of like, oh, there's 10 variants, but really there's 20 because this is the foil version. Like,
yeah,
get the F out of here. But the big two generally don't go crazy with it. Image doesn't really do it either. It's like the
Dynamites, the
caves, the smaller ones that they're trying to grab onto those sales.
yeah. And like I said, I felt like this one should have had more, only because of the name behind it and the creative team behind it.
Yeah.
Zdarsky being on Cap is like, when you sent that news into the chat that one day, I was like, I am getting this now.
Yeah.
I was the same way when he went on Batman, but we all know how that ended up. So
I like it. Everybody trashes his Batman run. I really like.
I'm not trashing it. I'm just not putting it on my top tier of the Batman realm.
Well, yeah, but I mean, then again, Batman's had so many, epic stories throughout the years that I enjoyed, for the most part, Zdarsky's Batman run. And I appreciated that it wasn't one of those where like, hey, I'm going to do 12 issues and then bounce. Like,
yeah,
it's like, no, I'm going to be on here and I'm going to do it like he did with Daredevil. I'm going to be on here and I'm going to have a long run and tell one long continuous story.
Yeah, like I said, but it just, to me, with Cap, I thought it would have been more for sure. Let's see. Yeah.
Probably. That's why they're having a hard time finding new distribution.
Right. All right. Well, let's jump into our next segment real fast, because this one I'm very excited for. This is Right or Wrong. And Dan, I got some good ones for you because I wanted to put them on you. I want to hear your hot take on these.
All right. I mean, that's, I got opinions.
I know. And some of these are a little bit older, so bear with me. I haven't been on in like so many episodes, but I want to hear what Dan has to say.
That's all right. I'm a little bit old too.
Yeah. So, right or wrong? The MCU ruined Kang before he even started, only because of the fact that there's talks right now about bringing Kang potentially back.
100% right.
All right, chat, you jump into, let me know what you think. After we go through these, I'll give my opinion. All right, number 2. DC's Absolute Power event was better than Marvel's entire Blood Hunt run.
Which was the Absolute Power event?
That was.
I'm thinking of like, I was trying to think like, what did they do with Absolute Batman? No, Absolute. Yeah. Right.
Okay. Number 3. The X-Men need a hard reboot. Krakoa should be erased from all of continuity.
Wrong.
Okay. Number 4, right or wrong? Spider-Boy is the worst new character Marvel has introduced in years.
Wrong, because they just introduced Spider-Girl.
I mean,
well, I won't say yet because we always go back and that's when we extrapolate on them.
Yes. So number 5 is more towards with everything with Shooter 2. Right or wrong, comic book art peaked in the 90s and has gone downhill ever since.
Right.
All right, let me run through mine, and then we'll kind of talk about everything else. So, MCU ruined Kang before it even got started. I'm going to go with wrong on that one.
All right, well, let's see. I said right. Richard said right. Mr. Keith said right. Now, do you mean ruined it before it got going, before they ever introduced him, or with the little bit that they did use him?
Yeah, yes, before they even used him. Like, just the name Kang Dynasty, when you seen it pop up for the MCU when they were making their timeline.
Because I can't remember. Because they hadn't done they hadn't put him as the villain in Ant-Man yet,
Mm-hmm.
but he had been in Loki before that. Though he
Yes.
wasn't. Though everybody knew it was Kang, but they didn't call him Kang.
No, it was Victor Timely.
Well, in the first season, it was He Who Remains.
Yes.
But then the second season, which was after the announcement, it was Victor Timely, which it is from the comic, but I thought they just ruined him in it because the stuff in Loki was interesting, and even though I think the Ant-Man Quantumania is Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania isn't as terrible as a lot of people think. It's not great,
Mm-hmm.
but it's entertaining for the most part. I think it kind of ruined the whole thing for me in it because you got a great actor to play him, and he gave a great performance, and you had an awesome design for the suit that stayed true to the comic while still making it something that wouldn't look absolutely ridiculous. And they made him talked about what a badass he was, and he killed all these Avengers teams all throughout the universe, and he gets beat by Ant-Man. I like Ant-Man, but you can't build this guy up to be like the biggest, baddest dude there is in all these realities and have him get beat solo by Ant-Man.
Yeah.
So for me, that's when it ruined it for him. I'm like, how am I supposed to take this character seriously as being this mega threat to all the Avengers when even all the Kangs in the post-credit scene talked about how he was the one that they feared,
mm-hmm.
and Ant-Man beat him by himself?
Yes. The thing for me is when it got started. The reason I say wrong is because the idea of having all these variants of a character is what all started what the MCU is now. And to have this idea of, even with Jonathan Majors, whatever, side you lean on for him with what happened in his personal life, to get him, taken out of all the movies and shows and so much. To me, it was a cool idea to have it where each person's a different character. This person's playing multiple characters, not just one similar Kang.
Yeah.
And to have that idea going into this, I thought it was a great concept. What happened after, yes, I will agree with you, Dan. But at the beginning, it wasn't ruined before it got started. What ruined it was
the execution of it.
Yeah. It, like, even after Jonathan Majors got let go, I had the idea of, like, why couldn't you just do what they did with John Krasinski as Mr. Fantastic, have one person play Kang in each one, and then the major lead up would, even if it was Denzel Washington, be the one above all. Like,
I think the problem with that is that they'd already done that post-credit scene in Ant-Man that showed Majors not just as, because he had already done He Who Remains, Kang, and Victor Timely,
mm-hmm.
and then in that, then it showed him as Ramatut,
yes.
Scarlet Centurion, and I forget the third one, or maybe the third one was just another Kang, but there were three.
I think it was just another one.
And you saw him as each one of them, but even still, okay, fine, just those three. But then it showed the whole Coliseum, and it's all Jonathan Majors. And like, you really killed your shot at being able to recast the role there when you're showing that clearly it's the same guy across the entire multiverse.
Exactly. So we'll lead into number 2 with DC's Absolute Power event is already better than Marvel entire Blood Hunt run. I agree with
wrong.
Richard said wrong.
Rich said wrong. Mr. Keith said right.
I'm going with you on this one, Dan, because of the fact that Absolute Power, even with the tie-ins for that event, felt like what an actual event should be. Mm-hmm. Where it's no pointless one-shots, no pointless miniseries that off-brand it. There was a couple that tied in with Blood Hunt, but most of them had... I don't care that Daredevil's in jail, like, during this event. Like, I really don't. I don't care what his thought process is. I don't care that he sent Elektra out. It doesn't matter to me. Give me what's happening and how this affects every single other character that's in this. And DC did that.
Blood Hunt, Absolute Power was a way that, like, it's still you know, I mean, granted, still like it was some old thing. It was what, you know, 8 months ago or something. But
Yeah.
you know, they're still dealing with the effects of it with characters that have different powers, you know, that didn't get their powers back or got other powers, or you know, or random people that got powers. You know, the whole Atom Project story was about that. You know, it brought the Justice League back. You know, and then it gave us Justice League Unlimited, which is
Phenomenal.
this is awesome. Why did you not do this before, where everyone's in the Justice League and we could, just like the cartoon was, and you get to see all these cool, you know, matchups. You know, we got that. We've got you know, some really good titles out of it. We've gotten you know, the stuff with Amanda Waller, like where she just went straight up full villain.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, and it was a good story, and it was something you could tell it was like how DC operated I know you like New 52, but how they operated pre New 52, which is, we're going to have this event, but we're going to spend legit like a year or 2 years building up slowly to this event, and you're not really going to understand until the event gets there. You're not really
happy to be back, Kevin.
Like, until we get to the event, you're not really going to see how all of this built up to it until you get there. But that's what it was with the Justice League disbanding, the Titans taking that step up, the whole thing with Beast Boy and the Starro thing and all that, and like everything. You're looking back at it like, okay, they had this plan in advance, like at least a year or two in advance.
Yep.
Where like, this leads into this, let's see into this, leads into this, goes into this, and you're like, yeah, that's a great progression, and the stories along the way were good too. And Blood Hunt, you know, it was just like, at the end it was like, all right, so everything is pretty much the same, except Doctor Doom's now the Sorcerer Supreme. So everything with that story really felt like it was just
a lead up.
It's like, what can we do to make Doctor Doom Sorcerer Supreme so we can do this other thing? That's what it felt like to me after I was done reading it.
Yeah, that's all it was to me. But we're going to go with number 3, which is...
I will say this. Even though the series that we got out of it wasn't great, I did appreciate that we got a Union Jack miniseries out of it, because the dramatically underused character.
Very. But with number 3, the X-Men need a hard reboot. Krakoa should be erased from continuity.
Hey, Richard says right. Mr. Keith says wrong. I think they need a reboot, not necessarily a reboot. I'd just say not erase Krakoa, because, you know, as great as Crisis on Infinite Earths was, that's where all their continuity got into a problem. Like, we're going to erase this, we're going to change this. I didn't like the Krakoa era. Huge X-Men fan before that. I didn't like that. I stopped reading about a year into it. But, you know, it happened. Just, you know, I just move on from it. You know, let's get the X-Men back to the status quo for, you know, what I want to see, you know, the X-Men that I liked. But I don't think you should just erase that storyline, because it happened. And if you erase that, then you get rid of some of the stuff we got in it, which was, you know, we got, even though he's not being used much, we got Thunderbird back. You know, we got some characters back. So I just say keep it and just, you know, move on. I was excited when they relaunched the X-Men books, and then I read them and I was like, these aren't
never mind.
Great.
Well, my take on it is the fact of, I don't think I'd erase Krakoa. I would erase the concept of nobody dies, because that was my biggest flaw with it.
And I said that too, and I was like, that really takes the stakes out of everything. And I mean, they have gotten rid of that because they don't have the stuff to be able to do it anymore. Right. My thing, and I don't know if they did it, but my thing, which I thought they should have addressed, with Nightcrawler being such a religious character, you know, with Christian, you know, being a Catholic and a Christian, so ingrained into who he is as a character, the whole thing of dying and then being brought back the way they were, I felt like they could have done something with that, with the whole issue of do you have a soul when you came back? Because remember when he died years ago, and they brought him back in Amazing X-Men, he was up in heaven, and they had to go and they had to bring him back. And when they brought him back after that first story arc, he's sitting there, had this really good scene, sitting there on the roof talking, I forget who, but talking to one of the other characters. And he's like, I don't have a soul anymore. He's like, for being this religious character, I died and I'm back here now, but my soul is gone. So, and he was really, had a lot of stuff that he was questioning. I felt like they should have done something like that with Krakoa, but it was just like, oh, you're dead. Now you're back.
Yeah, it was a respawn point. That's about all I felt like it was for me. Now,
and they could have done so much more with it too. They could have like, hey, we're going to bring you back, but we're going to bring like a younger version of you back, or hey, we're going to bring you back, but we're going to bring you back with this other character's powers, or
or strip away the power or a certain power set you have. Like you can't use this certain ability anymore. Like every time you die, and come back, you get closer to being a human rather than a mutant.
The whole thing with Cyclops too is that he needed the ruby quartz goggles to control his power because they established when he was younger he had a traumatic head injury and that caused him where he couldn't control his powers. Well, when you're bringing him back, the clone doesn't have a traumatic head injury. Like why does he still need the visor other than the fact it's a cool visual? But
Well, with number 4, it was Spider-Boy is the worst new character Marvel has introduced in years. Do we have anyone for 4?
Yeah, Richard said wrong, Jeff the Shark.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
Mr. Keith said he's put 2 wrong, but I think he just meant to type 4.
Right.
I say wrong just because I read Spider-Boy, the first few issues of the series. It was fun. It wasn't great. I eventually dropped it because it wasn't that I didn't enjoy the series. I just didn't enjoy it enough to keep spending $4 or $5 a month on it. And right. I'm like, when I'm looking at books that I got to cut, but I thought it was, it was a fun enough series for it. But I did see they just introduced Spider-Girl, and I'm like, all right, now you're just Spider-Boy was diluting the brand. Now it's even worse. So
I'm gonna go with right on this one only because of the fact that I'm like, we have enough Spider characters, man. Like, I know you're trying to reach for something here, but you got to cut ties at some point. Like, just keep it Peter Parker or Miles and just be done. Like, for at least a good 5 to 10 years.
That's why I only said wrong because they just introduced another one like a month or 2 ago. So that's what kept it. Plus the whole, I don't know if it counts, but the whole Mary Jane and Venom thing just,
Yeah, no. And then for our last one, I had comic book art peaked in the 90s and has gone downhill since.
Richard says wrong. Mr. Keith says wrong. I'll say right just because, not to say that there's not good artists now, because there are spectacular artists now, but I think as a whole, and there was some bad art in the 90s too. Like there was some bad art, but that's every age of comics. But there was like a lot of really good dynamic art too, and with a lot of energy. And those guys are all still alive. They're just, most of them, they're just not doing comics anymore. They found that they can make more money, like someone like J. Scott Campbell that can make more money just doing alternate covers and statue designs. And, that's what a lot of those guys do is just, they're just going to do alternate covers that they sell through their own websites and, and selling prints and stuff like that. And, the quality of interior, especially with the glut of alternate covers now, which has made it possible for them. You didn't have that in the 90s. So if you wanted to be an artist, you had to do interiors. Now you don't have to. You just have to be good at doing pinups.
You could be a Lee Bermejo.
Yeah. And Lee Bermejo is a fantastic interior artist too. You read this, you read the stuff that he does interior art for, it's great. But they also see it like, do you want to spend one day, a full day of work agonizing over like one page, or sometimes it's, with guys like him where it's even more detailed and stuff, it might take more than a day. Or do you want to take one day and knock out like a couple covers and pinups and stuff and really maximize your money?
Right.
And not have to put the same type of, not saying they're not putting effort in, but not have to put the same type of effort in.
Yeah. Well, for me, I'm going to go wrong on this one because I've just seen so much move forward with the art in the industry. Like I look at like a Jorge Jimenez, I look at a Dan Mora, I look at Daniel Warren Johnson, or Del Werther from Something's Killing the Children and Green Lantern Dark. Like I feel like we haven't hit that pinnacle of comic artists yet. I feel like it just keeps going up and up and up, and I'm waiting for this huge decline, and it hasn't happened yet.
I just think that there's, and maybe it's, the amount of books too, but and again, it's always happened like this too. And there was a lot of terrible art, like I said, in the 90s, but there's not enough good artists to do the interiors of all the books that are being put out now. And a lot of these guys are not doing regular runs. They're doing mini-series, they might be doing covers. They're doing one-shots. They're doing mini-series. There's not a ton of these really good artists that are doing monthly, month in and month out books. And it seems like the ones that are doing it, you kind of question it, like, how long are they going to do it? How long are they going to do this until they build their name up where they can just go on to just doing covers or just doing mini-series?
All right. Well, I think that basically covers our right and wrong for this segment. Let's get into that random panel of the week. And Dan, you are supplying that one this week.
Did you peek at it?
No, I have not. I didn't look at anything that you.
Well, here you go. This is.
I didn't want to be surprised.
I have not.
No, I want to be surprised.
This is one I have for the comic character of the day page that will be posted at some point, but I decided to pull it out early for this. Powerful enough to repel the attackers.
Yeah. I don't have anything for if it's coming out pink. You might want to call your doctor. Is all I can say.
Pink and white.
Yeah, like that seems like that seems like some lotion or ointment needs to be applied.
But with the angle that this is drawn in, like, presumably
it's coming from a belt.
It's coming from a belt buckle. Could be coming from little alien penis.
Yeah.
Could be coming from little alien belly button. Could be coming from some kind of other alien appendage.
But just the way it looks right now, it's definitely green pee-pee.
Yeah. I mean, I just got to say, I'm, looking at this panel, I've never been so happy to not be a farmer in my entire life.
Exactly. Oh my God. I have nothing else left to say. I'm glad it's going up a comic character of the day.
I've got right now about 100 or 120 or so panels saved that still have to be posted. Plus I have panels posted on there between now and August 1st, because you can schedule stuff up to a month in advance.
Right.
Seeding the field. So yeah, I guess I've got close to around 130, 150 panels that have not been seen yet that are already scheduled. I got a good one for the day Superman comes out, and a good one for the day Fantastic Four come out.
And that's all that matters.
And those ones, and fairness too, those ones are not like innuendo ones or stupid ones. There are ones like, all right, this is a pretty cool one speaking to the character I'm going to use.
All right. Well, that was our random panel of the week. Let's get into the character that does not need to either exist or Sonny is usually wrong about. Let's jump into the F list. All right, Dan. Who is our F-list character this week?
Well, I know what a fan of DC you are.
I'm already done with the show. Thank you all for coming.
So I present to you Gunfire.
Yeah.
He
No
doesn't
idea.
need a weapon. He is a weapon. Can you guess what decade this came out in?
Yes. 100%. But my favorite part so far is it's like RoboCop meets Thor on steroids.
It kind of looks like the design they had for Arsenal, for Roy back in the day when they changed.
Oh, the new Teen Titans?
Arsenal, yeah. But he had that like purple suit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it just keeps getting worse.
But
Deathstroke the Terror. Why is he Gambit?
See, I was gonna say he's wearing a trench coat, so he's cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
flashing people.
I mean, in honesty too, though. I mean, a trench coat is a badass piece of clothing.
Is he Mr. Keith? Is he holding a hammer?
What is he holding? Oh. Yeah, here he is from Heroes in Crisis.
Yes, and that's who I remember him from.
I've done 6 days.
Yeah, and never seen it again. You want to pick a fight with somebody? Try picking one with me.
You want to talk about overloaded with 90s goodness? Bam!
Oh my God! All the pocket. Rob Liefeld must have drew him, except for the feet.
What is it? You want me to strap a few more weapons on me, man? I'm afraid I can still move. Seriously, you can handle all this. Dad always insisted that I know the business inside and out, so he made me test fire every weapon that came off the assembly line since I was 8. Well, that seems like really good parenting, doesn't it?
Yes. Oh my God! But
it does look like a 90s G.I. Joe action figure.
And the best part is he has shoulder pads.
Yes. And pouches.
And pouches. Pouches galore.
Pouches.
Yeah. There's, oh my God. Like, seriously.
I said I wanted in.
It's just Gambit on the DC side, almost like Sideways was for Spider-Man for DC. It gets better. Oh my God.
Luckily,
it's like
I was still wearing most of my outfit under my street clothes.
It's like they took...
All I have to do is add the collapsible ceramic armor from my briefcase, and I love this. And Gunfire's ready to go ballistic.
I just feel like they took Superman, Gambit, Cyclops, and Cable and had a love child here.
It kind of looks like a Ted Cordis. Look at the way they drew his pants, though.
I know. It's... Oh, my God.
So, yes. This is from the 90s. Who knew? I present Gunfire. So, the way we normally do it is Sonny usually picks out the F-lister, then whoever's on with him, gives a name and backstory for him. So, since I picked him out and put him on here.
Yep.
You can go ahead and tell us his name and origin.
So, Gunfire. Born in a Venezuelan war of crime and drugs. An unknown love child that realized he had the power to pick up any object and use it as a weapon. Formerly a fan of Marvel. Wanted to be like his heroes Gambit and Cyclops, only to find out that he could not make the cut. Oh, no, I don't ever see this guy getting out of the F list. Like, you could put him in anything, and I'm pretty sure he's just going to be just a...
Well, come on, man! You gotta give us more than that. You gotta tell us what his name is. You gotta give him some backstory.
I haven't had enough time for this, so I gave the backstory. Let's think of a name for him. Gunfire.
I said I wanted it.
But let's call him Nathan Smith.
Nathan Smith. All right. Well, Gunfire's real name is Andrew Van Horn.
Not even close, but I'm good with that.
He first appeared in Deathstroke Annual 2 from October 1993. That would be this one. That's when DC, to try and compete with all of the 90s badassness that was going on, they had the Bloodlines story that ran through all of their annuals. And each annual introduced a new character, and Gunfire was the one that was introduced in Deathstroke. So yes,
Okay.
Andrew Van Horn, the son of a business executive who was never named. He only just referred to his dad. His father is killed, and he inherits this weapons business that he had. And he is attacked by an alien parasite that were these aliens that were attacking the Earth. And most of them, they would drain the life force from people. And most people died, but a few people had a little something extra in them that caused them not only to not die, but to get various superpowers. And his superpower is that he has the ability to charge any object that he touches and have it fire energy like it's a gun, hence Gunfire. And
so basically Gambit's kinetic energy.
Yeah, but he doesn't. But where Gambit has to throw the thing, Gunfire just holds it, and then it shoots out, and then it disintegrates after he shoots it. And I thought I had it put in here. I guess I took it out though.
I just noticed that Len Wein wrote this too.
Yes, it was his trading card that he had in DC's trading card series, where it's holding a baseball and shooting it. And I wish I had left it in because it's just so stupid. But yes, he was created by Len Wein and Steve Irwin, not the Crocodile Hunter, the guy that drew comics.
Rest in peace.
Yes. So, as I said, it's the, as they say, agitation of particles to either cause objects to explode or fire energy projectiles. And he was, as I said, introduced in Deathstroke Annual 2. And then he went on to have his own series that ran for 13 issues. Well, I guess 14 if you count issue 0.
Yeah.
14 issues. So 0 to 13.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a good place to get a start in would be something like a Deathstroke. But, yeah.
Yes. And he, as you said, he was not used, let's say not used very much. In Infinite Crisis, he battled the Secret Society of Supervillains, and Prometheus cut off his hands. So, that didn't work out real well for him.
Well, there goes your powers. So,
in Final Crisis, Superman rescues him along with a bunch of other characters that were in limbo. And then Heroes in Crisis, where
good
this panel of him in Heroes in Crisis, he is one of the characters that was in Sanctuary that was killed off.
Right.
Which was when Tom King, DC, I guess Tom King went to DC, was like, I need characters that they can kill. And they're like, how about this loser here?
Yeah.
And he gave him a bunch of characters that nobody gave a shit about and said, kill them.
Yeah.
But then they later brought him back in an issue of The Flash. So now he lives in the future somewhere.
Yeah. So my final verdict on this is that he's not making it out of the F list. Like I don't see it. I don't understand it. Like there's some people I was able to justify back in the day. This guy just no.
2 thumbs and no originality. Because this was from the blood, because this was from the, this thing, the Bloodlines thing, where, every DC annual that came out that year, had the big, Bloodlines, and each one of them introduced a new character. Marvel did a similar thing that, I forget what it was called, but they did something one year where each annual had a new character that got introduced.
Right.
And it was polybag with a little trading card. And, like 98% of the characters are forgettable. I don't remember if anyone worthwhile came out of Bloodlines. I'd have to check. I know there were 1 or 2 of the Marvel ones. But But yeah, I don't know how much of it was, Len Wein and Steve Irwin, like, hey, we got this character we created, and how much of it was DC going to and be like, hey, you got to create a character for this book, and he's got to be 90s, and he's got to be, whatever. Unfortunately, Len Wein is no longer with us, so I can't ask him, like, what were you thinking of when you came up with this?
He's like, money, baby, money.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm going to also agree with you that he lives on the F list, and I'm sure James Gunn will make quick work of him. I could see this character being on an episode of Peacemaker.
Yeah, and just getting shot in the face. No one wants you.
Yeah. So, I'm with you. I think that he's on the F list, and he remains on the F list. He could be the what do you call it? The security guard for the door at the F list.
All right. Well, ladies and that was my
Sal makes the graphics where it's supposed to be the picture of the character going back, and I sent him this morning, and I was like, hey, here's the character, and he said, oh yeah, I'll get it done today. So that was not the one from today. That was the one from a week or two ago.
Well, that was our F list. Gunfire. Not making it out.
No.
Let's jump in.
Gunfire.
To this review today, Dan. This was actually picked by Dan, so I'm going to let Dan take this one away because mine's going to be quick work of this series.
Well, in fairness, you had said, when I said, hey, what do you want to review? And, you said, I'll pick something and let you know the next day. And then I never heard from you. So I was just thinking like, I was trying to think of what's something that's short that we can.
Yeah, I was working a list.
I was like, yeah, what'd you say?
I said I was working a list because I had a couple, and then you throw this up there. I was like, you know what? I'll review something Dan did. And then I was like, it can't be that bad because Dan hates reviewing things that are bad.
No, I don't. I like reviewing things. It makes it more fun.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it fun to read it, but it makes it fun to tear it apart. So, yeah, I remembered I had this 2-issue series sitting in a box. So, yes, The Last Avengers Story, it was published in, what year was this published? It was published by Marvel Comics, obviously, in 1995. And it is written by Peter David with painted art by Ariel Olivetti, lettered by Jim Novak, and the logo was created by Todd Klein, for those people who care about who creates logos.
Yes.
Which it does have a cool logo with the broken up A.
Oh, it does.
So the story, as you could see from this cover here, it says Ultraverse, which they didn't do much with that line, but they did a little bit. It is a alternate reality. It's not the main reality. So this takes place at some point in the future. They don't really specify, but based on the ages of the characters, I would say probably about 20 years after like the Marvel comics that we are familiar with reading. Excuse me. Pretty much all of the original Marvel characters, Avengers, Fantastic Four, all of them are retired, and there's a new Avengers team. But at this point in the future, supervillainy has pretty much been wiped out. So the Avengers are really just kind of a symbolic team at this point. So it shows the characters for a couple pages before they are then murdered by having a nuke dropped on their headquarters. And the story really starts with Ultron. I think it was Ultron 59. That goes, and you see him placing a book in this museum-like room full of all these weapons and artifacts and stuff from different characters that says The Last Avengers Story. And then the story, drop the bomb, all the Avengers die. Kang is involved and shows up and to Hank Pym, Kang, and Ultron and tell him, you have to get the original Avengers. You have to get the Avengers back together, not these lame-o ones. We want the real ones. and we're gonna have a battle to the death. And you got, whatever the timeline he gave, 2 days, 3 days, something. It's very much an old Western type of thing. Like, all right, we're going to meet at, high noon tomorrow, and we're going to settle this once and for all. Very much the old Western kind of trope of that. And then Hank and the Wasp have to go around and start collecting characters because, Kang and Ultron have told him, if you don't go and get these people, we're just going to go start murdering them individually. So Hank is retired and trying to find a cure for the Wasp, who has been revealed that she is shrinking permanently by the rate of 1 inch a year, which doesn't sound like a lot until you realize, after 10 years, after 20 years, that's
a lot.
So they're kind of living as outcasts, and as he's trying to find a cure for her. And slowly but surely, over the course of the book, you find out what has happened to characters like Captain America, Vision, Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver, Hawkeye, Thor. You find out bits and pieces over the course of the story what has happened to some of these characters. The team he ends up assembling is, it's him and the Wasp. They find Human Torch. They find Cannonball. They find this character Bombshell that says she's the daughter of Hercules, who, at one point in the story, it shows that him, Thor, Hulk, and the Thing had gone on this to have this big battle amongst the gods, and the only one that showed back up was the Hulk embedded in the side of a mountain with Hercules' mace. Who are the other characters? Character Hotshot, and I forget who he's the son of. It shows a character that is the daughter of She-Hulk and Wyatt Wingfoot. It shows the daughter of Human Torch and Alicia Masters, though she doesn't get involved with the team. And it shows the Maximoff brothers in very different versions than we have in regular Marvel Universe. And so it's the threat being made, and Hank going around assembling this team, getting them to the point where, all right, we're here to do battle in the day and time of the villain's choosing, the villains showing up, the battle commencing. Some characters live, most of them don't. And it ends on, I won't say a teaser because they never did anything past this, but it ends on something that leaves it open-ended. You said you wanted to get my take on it before you gave yours?
Yes, please give me your rating.
All right, so I bought this when it first came out. Peter David, good writer. Aria Olivete, this is early in his career. I thought the painted artwork was pretty good. The character designs in it, when it comes to their costumes, is very bland. It's very much, here's a bodysuit of all one solid color. And while it is a bit inconsistent, where there's some parts where the background is really nicely done, and some where it's just Rob Liefeld-esque. And I don't know what the time parameters are that he had on this, like if he had time to really do it or if it was up against deadlines, so I don't know if it's a stylistic choice or not. But while the quality of the art I thought was good, I thought the design aspect was kind of lacking when it comes to backgrounds, when it comes to costume design. It's a very dark book. It is not light fare. It's not anything you read if you want to be uplifted. It's a very dark, ominous future, and the artwork reflects that pretty well. Story-wise, it's kind of, like I said, it's kind of that old West trope of, one gang telling the other gang, the other guy, like, you get your gang together and you got 2 days to meet us and we're going to have it out. And then the guy, whoever it is, going from person A to person B to person C to person D to get them recruited and get there. And then everybody that's there at first isn't, there's always somebody that shows up late to come in and save the day. And so it's, it doesn't break any new ground with that.
Mm-hmm.
There's some nice twists in it. I like the fact that it doesn't give you, that you get fed little bit by little bit as the story goes, what's happened to all of these characters, like Scarlet Witch and Vision and Thor and all these characters beforehand. And even when it ends, you don't know all of it completely, but you find out little bit by little bit. So I like how the story's structured in that way.
Mm-hmm.
I like that it doesn't answer every question. Like I said, there's the scene where it's pretty short, where it's Thor and Hercules and Hulk and the Thing that go off to fight this grand war, and they're gone for months, and then the Hulk just shows up in the side of the mountain clutching Hercules' mace, and it forever F's him up. But, I like that we don't have to have every little thing answered.
Right.
Between him and the Avengers, when it was Wonder Man and Tigra and Hawkeye, them was pretty gruesome.
Yes.
And, I kind of dug the fight there, the fight when they go up against the villains. It was, yeah, there was some parts of it that were cool. There were other parts where I was just like, you could have done this. I felt like this would have been a much better series if it had been more than 2 issues. I felt like it was.
I agree.
It was too much story for 2 issues. I think 5 or 6 issues for this, where you could really get into the character's head, where instead of only getting 2 or 3 pages where you could, like, per character, and some not even that much, where you could really dive into it, where, we don't have to have every detailed thing about what happened in the past with some of these characters, but we could still get more than just a couple panels.
Right.
So I think it was too much story for too little of a space, and because it made it condense it down like that, it took away some of the impact. Especially, this big battle at the end should have been like 1 full issue just in and of itself. I did think the thing at the very end, the last page, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. But overall, I'd rate this out of 10. I'd say, I'll hold the issues up to, issue 1, issue 2. Overall, out of 10, I would rate this, I'd say 5 out of 10. I think it's, it's an interesting enough read that I don't think after you're done reading it, I don't think you're just going to, at least me, where you're not going to be like, oh my God, I just, wasted 20 minutes or half an hour of my time, however fast you read. But I also don't think it's something that you're going to go back to time and again.
No. Well, for the first time, I think ever, Dan, I have to agree with you on a rating of a book. Like, this was a cool premise. I feel like it was thought out well. I don't think the execution behind it was good.
Yeah.
Peter David's work in it, I thought, yes, it could have gone 4 issues maybe, and it would have been a solid book. My problem throughout this whole thing was the art. I could not do it. Like, every time I looked at looking at the Human Torch's face pissed me off. Like, 100%. And no character really looked the same from panel to panel. Like, I found myself sitting there sometimes going, wait, is that Johnny? No. Well, we know She-Hulk looks like that, but why does she look different? And it didn't sit right with me. Now, like I said, the story I give a lot of kudos to. I love the fact that they made Doom a drooling idiot in it, playing chess.
The thing with Reed having to have the
suit on because his body wouldn't stop stretching.
Yeah,
that was a cool concept.
When
You
he
know what
said
I mean?
my body's basically Play-Doh.
Yeah, he's like, my body's basically just goo. Like, yes, that's awesome. The idea of Wasp shrinking, I just did not like the fact of when we talked about like Black Widow and everything. Like, it was one panel saying like, well, we can grab Black Widow, dead. We can grab this person, dead. We can grab this person, insane, but dead. Well, explain that to me. It's too much. Like, okay, like if this was a little bit drawn out more, I would have probably found more solace in the fact that these characters died a certain way. Now, I agree with you on the Tigra uh, part where it was just gruesome. Like, I
Make a wish.
yeah, make a wish now. I'm like, okay, that was cool. But other than that, like, there was nothing that really held me into this story. You know, having the idea of like seeing Vision in a cloud like a celestial was kind of all right. That's not my cup of tea there. You know, it just didn't do anything for me. Like I said, the idea of it was great. The concept of it was cool. The execution was horrible. And the fact that it was only 2 issues made it even worse. But the damn art killed me, man.
Yeah,
Like,
I think, because when it shows these new Avengers and they're just kind of sitting around the base, you only get to see them for like a page and then it explodes. The way it should have been structured was they should have been the entire first issue. Entire, and each issue it's a few more pages than a standard comic, but not a ton.
yeah,
Something just fell. I don't know. Whatever. But it should have been like a whole issue of this new generation of Avengers out doing something, so you can at least, because a lot of it is it's them telling us, this is what the world is like. It's not them showing us.
right.
So it's Johnny like talking to Alicia about their daughter, and him saying like she only sees these lame guys that are out now. Like she doesn't see when we had to go up against Doom and Galactus, and like when we had legit serious threats.
Mm-hmm.
The first issue should have been a whole issue of just these new Avengers and all this. And so you're thinking like, and then maybe some threat coming in and them thinking like, oh, so this is like the last Avengers story with these characters. And then all of a sudden, the end of the first issue, bomb drops and they all die. Then you'd be like, holy shit, you just killed the entire cast. How are you doing issue 2? And then issue 2 picks up with, them going to Hank and
Trying to figure out everything.
Yeah, because when they go to the site to kind of see if there's anything left over, the Avengers base that got bombed. There's some characters that are already there. Like, okay, why is Cannonball there? Why
Exactly.
is Human Torch there? Like, did you call them and say, hey, can you meet us here? Did they just show up for?
It just missed a plot point.
Like
There's a lot.
They were just there, and they're not characters that are really you think of as Avengers, because then it goes into, all right, well, if Cannonball is there, like, are there other X-Men that are still kicking around? It told us what happened to the rest of the Fantastic Four, but not anything of the X-Men other than maybe them just like, hey, I like Cannonball, let's throw him in the story. It's kind of the vibe I got.
Yeah.
The character Bombshell and Hotshot, that they're just there, like, if with a little more space in the story, you could have had the added space to have a couple panels of, hey, we're going here, meet us here. Hey, we've got to go do this and that.
So you gave this a 5. I am agreeing with you. This is definitely a 5 out of 10 for me. Like, the only reason I'm not going lower is because I feel like there was more to the story that could have been told, and I feel like that it got cheaped out in a way. I really dig David's work in here, but not to the extent where it blew my socks off. Like, it wasn't something that, oh, well, I read this, now I'm gonna go buy the issues of it. It was more of, well, it was cool, but it didn't. It just landed flat, like the colors.
Like I said, you're not, at least for me, I think you're not going to finish reading and be like, oh, I wasted my time, but you're also not going to go, oh yeah, I got to go back and read that again. Like, so I bought it when it came out, so it's it's here, it's in the box with all the other Avengers stuff.
Yeah.
They mentioned Cap throughout it, but you don't really see him. Like, they said he became president.
Yeah, that was the thing that bothered me too, is Cap
being
being president. It doesn't make sense to have Cap as president.
See, I don't mind that because they've done a ton of stories over the years in various books of Cap becoming president. So I didn't mind that, but I would have wanted to see it. Excuse me. I would have wanted to see it, some scenes. And again, they could have been scenes like interspersed throughout the book, like they had all the other flashbacks.
So I think that covers up the review for today. Thank you, everybody out there that joined us today for episode 160 of the Codex Podcast. It was great being back. Need some fine tuning, so you think you're going to see me on a few more episodes. As always, that guy right there is Dan Kelly. You can find him over at Dan Kelly Art, running Instagram, doing Instagram, making Instagram fun for everybody. And as always, I am Jamie J Dub. Thank you all for being here. Thank you all for watching. Thank you to everyone in chat that stuck around. And we will see you in the next one.